All right, and welcome while we read about Bleeding Kansas. And Bleeding Kansas is basically where the popular vote becomes quite deadly. The fighting lasts between 1854 and 1861. So, Bleeding Kansas, Bloody Kansas, or just simply the Border War, as it is known as it's a series of violent confrontations in the United States between 1854 and 1861, which emerged from a political and ideological conflict over the legality of slavery in the proposed state of Kansas. So, the conflict was characterized by years of electoral fraud, raids, assault, and retributive murders carried out in Kansas and neighboring Missouri by pro-slavery border ruffians and anti-slavery free staters. There were, during part of this period, simultaneously two different governments in different cities with different constitutions. One was a slave government, one was a free government, and they both were claiming to be the legitimate government of the territory of Kansas. At the core of the conflict was the question of whether or not the Kansas Territory would allow or prohibit slavery, and thus enter the Union as a slave state or free state. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 called for popular sovereignty, and it specified that the decision about slavery would be made by a popular vote of the territory settlers rather than by the legislature. So it's not just the legislator who's going to vote for your slave, literally anybody who lives there. Which means if I care very much about slavery spreading, but I don't necessarily live in Kansas, if I moved there, then I could vote. After I help that out, I can move back home, whatever. Who the settlers of the territory were, and therefore who had the right to vote in that question, became bitterly disputed matters. Pro-slavery citizens from Missouri poured in and fought violently against abolitionists, also pouring in from northern states. Take a look at this picture right here. This picture on the left shows Representative Preston Brooks of South Carolina, and he's accompanied by Representative Lawrence Keitt of South Carolina, who severely beat Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts with a cane in the Senate chamber. See, Brooks' violent act was in response to a speech in which Sumner had attacked the institution of slavery, and pro-slavery senators such as Andrew Butler of South Carolina, who was Brooks's relative. Sumner's injuries were so serious that he had to take leave of his Senate duties for 3 years to recuperate. So Brooks beat Sumner so bad, it took him 3 years to recover. And it's because Sumner had said bad things about slavery. How do you think people felt about slavery at these times? Oh. So, following Sumner and his beating, a fragile peace broken by intermittent violent outbreaks for more than 2 years occurred. The last major outbreak of real violence was touched off by the Marie de Cignes Massacre, I really hope I said that right, I don't know, in 1858, in which the border ruffians, remember they're the ones who want slavery, killed 5 free state men. They did this in the so-called Battle of the Spurs on January 1859. John Brown led escaped slaves through a pro-slavery ambush en route to freedom via Nebraska and Iowa, and not a single shot was fired. However, approximately 56 people died in Bleeding Kansas by the time the violence ended in 1859. So it took a few years, but people died over this. So if I was going to simplify everything, I would say that Bleeding Kansas, it's a border war that happens from 1854 to 1858. In the Kansas Territory, this is where this happens. There were anti and pro slavery groups that were literally fighting out the debate. Anti slavery group was mostly figureheaded by John Brown, although figurehead, he was not only, he got in the dirt and he slug it out. May 21st, 1856, pro-slavery forces burned down abolitionist stronghold of Lawrence, Kansas. A lot of times people say that that is the high points of Bleeding Kansas. So I hope you're learning and hope you're having fun. Bleeding Kansas. Some people say this is the actual start of the real fighting for the American Civil War. I don't know. It's up to you.